Hello students. In the last video, we came to know about the author of the chapter Lost Spring, who is Anis Jung. Then we learnt about the characters associated with the chapter, followed by a short introduction of the chapter. Hope that much was clear to you all. In this video, we will be starting with line by line explanation of the chapter. We will only study page number 13, 14 and 15 in this video. So now, let's get started. Before starting the last lesson, I would like to tell you about the first paragraph. In this first paragraph, the author's meeting with Sahib, a rag picker. Author meets Sahib, a rag picker, who scrounges for gold in the garbage dumps. Sahib belongs to a refugee family from Bangladesh. Author advises him to go to school. Sahib then tells her that there was no school in his neighborhood. Author gives him a hope by promising to open a school in his neighborhood. Author feels embarrassed at having made a promise that she cannot keep. So now, please open page number 13. I am going to read it. Why do you do this? I ask Sahib, whom I encounter every morning scrounging for gold in the garbage dumps of my neighborhood. Scrounging here means seek to obtain something. So the narrator is asking from that child, why do you do this? She encounters with the child every morning. He was scrounging the garbage dump of his neighborhood. Sahib left his home long ago. Set amidst the green fields of Dhaka, Sahib was the person who left his home quite a time before. Set amidst means being surrounded by. It was being surrounded the green fields of Dhaka. His home is not even a distant memory, and he was not able to recall his home. There were many storms that swept away their fields and homes. His mother tells him. His mother only told him that there were constant storms that swept away their fields and homes. That's why they left, looking for gold in the big city where he now lives. And here they came to earn their bread. I have nothing else to do, he mutters, looking away. When he was being asked the question by the narrator, why do you do this? At that he answers in a very low voice. He says that he has nothing else to do. Then the writer, in a joyful manner, said, go to school. I say glibly. Glibly means without thinking, realizing immediately how hollow the advice must sound. Now, here, when the narrator told that go to school, after speaking, she realizes how hollow the advice was. Now turn to page number 14. There is no school in my neighborhood. When they build one, I will go. When the child was being asked the question, go to school, he was being told that go to school. Then he also replied that there was no school in his neighborhood. When a school is being built, then definitely he will go. Then once again the writer is telling in a half joking manner, if I start a school, will you come? He also, smiling very broadly, he said, yes. After a few days later, I see him running up to me. Is your school ready? After a few days, that child, he came running to the writer and asked, is your school ready? It takes longer to build a school. I say, embarrassed. Here, the writer, she felt embarrassed, uncomfortably shy, and then told that it takes longer time to build a school. At her having made a promise that was not meant, but promises like mine abound. Abound means exist in large number. In every corner of his bleak world. Bleak world means bare world. Then the poet is thinking that this kind of promises exist in large number in their bare world. Here, in the first paragraph, we studied that the author sees Sahib every day searching for gold in the garbage dumps of his neighborhood. Sahib and his family hails from Bangladesh. His family left Bangladesh as their fields and home had been swept away due to flooding caused by storms. They came to India in the hope of finding a better life. The author asks Sahib why he does rag picking and doesn't go to school. To this, he replies that there is no school in his neighborhood, and if a school is built, then he would definitely go there. The author jokingly promises to open a school. This promise was like many promises which are made to poor children like him, never to be fulfilled. The author is embarrassed when Sahib walks up to her one day to know if the school she had promised to open had been built. Now, we are going to read the second paragraph on page number 14. Irony in Sahib's name and existence. In this paragraph, we'll study that Sahib's full name is Sahib A. Alam, which means Lord of the Universe. But he is a rag picker, hence the irony. Ironical that he roams the street with other rag pickers. All rag pickers are barefoot, lead a poor and miserable life. Author observes that being barefoot has been a tradition in the poverty-stricken India. Author expresses wonder at this excuse. Now, after months of knowing him, I ask him his name. After knowing Sahib for many months, the writer asked him his name, and he announced that his name was Sahib A. Alam. He does not know what it means. If he knew its meaning, Lord of the Universe, he would have a hard time believing it. The writer is telling that Sahib actually didn't knew the exact meaning of his name, which meant Lord of the Universe. If he would have known it, it would have been a very hard thing for him to believe it. Unaware of what his name represents, he roams the street with his friends, an army of barefoot boys who appear like the morning birds and disappear at noon. Sahib was unaware about the meaning of his name. So, unaware of the meaning of his name, he roamed the whole street with his friend. His was an army of barefoot boys. They used to walk around the streets barefooted. They appeared like the morning birds and disappeared at noon. Over the months, I had come to recognize each of them. The author was able to recognize those barefoot army boys after a month. Now, in this, we studied that one day the author asks Sahib his full name. She sees irony in the fact that his name is Sahib-e-Alam, which means Lord of the Universe. But he is unaware of it and roams about in the streets with his friends. Most of them do not wear chappals. Now, the writer asks, why aren't you wearing chappals? The child replies, my mother did not bring them down from the shelf. It means it was kept safely. Even if she did, he will throw them off, adds another who is wearing shoes that do not match. Then the second child, he replied, even if his mother gives him the chappals, then also he will throw it off. The boy who added this was wearing a pair of shoes, but they were not a match. When I comment on it, he shuffles his feet and says nothing. Shuffles here means dragging or stumbling. So he simply dragged his feet but said nothing. I want shoes, says a third boy who has never owned a pair all his life. These were the words of the third boy of the barefoot gang, barefoot army. He told that he wanted shoes. Traveling across the country, I have seen children walking barefoot in cities on village roads. Now the writer is telling that when she was traveling across the country, she has seen many children walking barefoot in the cities and on village roads. It is not lack of money, but a tradition to stay barefoot. Here the writer is telling that it was not because of the lack of money, but it was a tradition to stay barefoot, is one explanation. I wonder if this is only an excuse to explain away a perpetual state of poverty. Here the writer was not happy with the excuse which was being given. Now, here we studied that when the author inquires about the reason of not wearing the chappals, one says his mother did not bring them down from the shelf. Another says he only wants to wear shoes. While traveling across the country, the author has noticed many people moving barefoot. One explanation for not wearing shoes is that it is a tradition and it is not due to lack of money. The author wonders if it is only an excuse to hide their grinding poverty. Now, the next paragraph on page number 15. Here we'll study author's observation on the past and the present. Remembers a priest barefoot son from a town named Udupi 30 years ago, who longed for a pair of shoes. 30 years later, the author observes a conspicuous change. Present-day priest son is dressed in grey uniform and wears socks and shoes. But many still, like other rag pickers, remain shoeless. Now page number 15. I remember a story. A man from Udupi, Udupi is a place, a city in Karnataka, once told me, as a young boy, he would go to school past an old temple. Now, the writer is remembering a story which was being told to her. It was the story of an old temple where young boy's father was a priest. He would stop briefly at the temple and pray for a pair of shoes. The child would stop at the temple and would pray for a pair of shoes. 30 years later, I visited his town and the temple. The story moves further that once again, after 30 years, the writer visits the temple, which was now drowned in an air of desolation, and that town was now empty. In the backyard where lived the new priest, there were red and white plastic chairs. In the backyard, the new priest was living, and there were red and white plastic chairs. A young boy, dressed in a grey uniform, wearing socks and shoes, arrived panting and threw his school bag on a folding bed. A young boy who was dressed in grey uniform, the child was also wearing socks and shoes, came there panting, fighting for breath, and he threw his school bag on the folding bed. Looking at the boy, I remembered the prayer another boy had made to the goddess when he had finally got a pair of shoes. Now, looking to that boy, the writer remembered the prayer which the boy 30 years before had made to the goddess when he had finally got a pair of shoes. Let me never lose them. The goddess had granted his prayer. Young boy, like the son of the priest, now wore shoes. Now, the young boy of the present day priest was wearing shoes. But many others, like the rag pickers in my neighborhood, remained shoeless. Once again, the writer is telling, but many other children and the rag pickers in her neighborhood, they remained shoeless. My acquaintance with the barefoot rag pickers leads me to Seemapuri. Acquaintance means known person but not a very close friend. So, her friendship with the barefoot rag pickers led her to Seemapuri. Seemapuri is a place on the periphery of Delhi, yet miles away from it, metaphorically. Metaphorically, it was quite miles away from Delhi. Those who live here are squatters who come from Bangladesh back in 1971. The people living in Seemapuri at the periphery of Delhi, they were squatters and they came from Bangladesh in 1971. Sahib's family is among them. Seemapuri was then a wilderness. Seemapuri at that time was uncultivated. It still is, but it is no longer empty. But now it is no longer empty. It is being filled with people in structures of mud with roofs of tin and tarpaulin. Devoid of sewage, drainage or running water, live 10,000 rag pickers. The structure in which these rag pickers lived, they lived in a mud house. Their roofs was of tin and tarpaulin. Their houses were devoid of sewage, drainage or running water, and in this kind of locality there lived 10,000 rag pickers. They have lived here for more than 30 years without an identity, without permits, but with ration cards that get their names on voter lists and enable them to buy grains. They have been living there for more than 30 years without any identity, without permit, but they have ration cards, and because of those ration cards they got their names on voter list, and that enables them to buy grain. Food is more important for survival than an identity. They say that food is much more important for survival than identity. It, if at the end of the day we can feed our families and go to bed without an aching stomach, we would rather live here than in the fields that gave us no grain. Say a group of women in tattered saris, a group of women in old and torn saris, they said, if at the end of the day we can feed our family, if by the end of the day the whole family is able to go to bed with something in the stomach, then they would prefer to live there itself. When I asked them why they left their beautiful land of green fields and river, the author once again asked them why they left their beautiful land of green fields and rivers. Wherever they find food, they pitch their tents that become transit homes. They told wherever they find food, they casually put their tents and that place becomes their guest house, transit home. Children grow up in them, becoming partners in survival. Now, in that house only, in that guest house only, their children, they grow up. The tents become their becoming partners in the survival. And survival in Simapuri means rat picking. In Simapuri, rat picking was only the means of survival for them. Through the years, it has acquired the proportion of a fine art. Garbage to them is gold. It is their daily bread, a roof over their heads, even if it is a leaking roof, but for a child it is even more. Garbage to them is gold. It is their bread and at least a roof over their heads. Although the roof might be leaking, but for a child it is much more. Hope you all understood this much. So, we'll stop here and continue with the chapter in the next video. Thank you.